It wasn't a slip of the tongue. When J.D. Vance curled his lip, looked across the aisle, and tossed out the phrase "street girl," he knew exactly what he was doing. It wasn't a critique of policy. It wasn't a debate on the merits of a bill. It was a dog whistle turned into a foghorn. It was a calculated, visceral attempt to strip a sitting congresswoman of her dignity solely because she dared to be loud, black, and brilliant in a space historically built for men like him. You could feel the air leave the room. It was the kind of disrespect that makes your blood boil, the pure, unfiltered arrogance of a man who believes his pedigree protects him from consequences. But looking back, that moment wasn't a tragedy. It was a trap. He thought he was just using a throwaway line to score points with his base. He didn't realize he had just handed Jasmine Crockett the loaded gun that would end his narrative. To understand the danger of this moment, you have to look past the headlines. This wasn't a schoolyard taunt. It was a political assassination attempt disguised as a casual remark. J.D. Vance, the venture capitalist in a MAGA mask, operates on the assumption that the Senate is a country club where people like Jasmine are merely guests. By labeling her street, he wasn't just being rude, he was signaling to his donors that she didn't belong. It is the oldest trick in the book, misogynoir. It is the specific, toxic blend of racism and sexism designed to corner black women into a lose-lose situation. The trap was set perfectly. He sits there, wrapped in the protection of his Ivy League pedigree and senatorial privilege, baiting her. He knows the rules of the game are rigged. If she takes the high road and stays silent, the insult sticks and she looks weak. But if she responds with passion, if she raises her voice even an octave, she walks right into the stereotype of the angry woman that conservative media has already scripted for her. He was banking on her losing her cool. He wanted the clip of her shouting so he could smirk and call for decorum. The establishment media waited for her to explode, to give them the angry soundbite they craved. But Jasmine isn't just loud, she's lethal. And to understand why she won, you have to understand who she was fighting. Let's peel back the curtain on the man throwing the stones. J.D. Vance isn't the blue-collar warrior he plays on TV. He is a costume artist. He is a Yale law graduate and a Silicon Valley venture capitalist who decided that the quickest path to power was selling out his own past. He wrote a bestseller looking down on the working class, analyzing them like they were lab rats, only to turn around and cosplay as their champion when the political winds shifted. When he uses a slur like street girl, it isn't accidental. It is a desperate attempt to distance himself from the cocktail parties and boardrooms where he actually feels comfortable. He needs to punch down to prove he's tough, because he knows, deep down, he's just a chameleon in a cheap suit. He believes his credentials give him the right to define who is worthy of power. He spent years studying how to manipulate voters, but he forgot to study the one thing that can't be faked: authentic grit. While Vance was sipping wine at fundraising galas, Jasmine Crockett was in the trenches. She isn't a media creation manufactured by a PR firm. She is a public defender and a civil rights attorney who has looked injustice in the eye and stared it down. She climbed the ladder of American politics with weights on her ankles that men like Vance couldn't even lift. When he calls her street, he thinks he's insulting her. He doesn't realize he's describing her superpower. Her street is the courtroom where she defended the defenseless. Her street is the community that elected her to fight for them. Her street is the reality that millions of Americans live in every day, the reality of bills and struggle and resilience, a reality J.D. Vance only visits when he needs a photo op. She possesses a legal mind sharper than his and a spine made of steel, forged in the fires of real advocacy, not Twitter threads. She wasn't the prey in this interaction. She was the predator lying in wait. Vance saw a street girl. He should have checked her resume, because he was about to get taken to court. But in the immediate aftermath of the comment, the tension was unbearable. After the words left his mouth, you expected a retraction, you expected a pivot, or perhaps a moment of realization that he had gone too far. Instead, we got the smirk, that familiar condescending curl of the lip that says, "I can say whatever I want, and you can't touch me." He doubled down, treating the outrage as a joke, performing for an audience of one. Immediately, the ecosystem responded. The right-wing echo chamber lit up, filling the timeline with laughing emojis and pundits explaining why she was too sensitive or claiming she didn't understand the context. It felt like the entire weight of the establishment was crashing down to remind her of her place. The boys' club was in session, and they were having a laugh at her expense. It is a suffocating feeling that every woman, every person of color knows intimately, being talked over, dismissed, and ridiculed while the world nods along with the bully. But watch Jasmine in that clip. She didn't interrupt, she didn't flail. She sat there with the terrifying stillness of a statue, watching him dig his own grave. She let the insult hang in the air, festering, letting his arrogance expose his character more than any speech could. She let him believe her silence was submission. He leaned back in his chair, smug satisfaction on his face. And that was the exact second the trap snapped shut. When she finally leaned into the mic, the volume didn't change, but the gravity in the room shifted instantly. She didn't scream and she didn't stutter. She dismantled him with the surgical precision of a prosecutor who knows the defendant is guilty. She took that intended slur, street, and she weaponized it. She looked him dead in the eye and reminded him that the streets are where real Americans live. They are the places where single mothers work 2 jobs, where families worry about health care, and where resilience is forged. She exposed him not as a leader, but as a tourist in his own country. She contrasted her consistent record of public service against his career of venture capital vulturism and political flip-flopping. It was a masterclass in poise. She made it clear that while he was busy trying to act like a tough guy for a podcast clip, she was doing the actual work of governance. It was presidential, it was powerful, and most importantly, it revealed that beneath the expensive suit and the rehearsed sneer, there was absolutely nothing there. It wasn't just a clapback, it was an eviction notice. You could see the light leave his eyes. The reaction was instantaneous and electric. Within hours, the clip was dominating every feed from Black Twitter to progressive TikTok. The intended slur, street, became a badge of honor overnight. People weren't just cheering for Jasmine, they were reclaiming the narrative. Street became synonymous with real, while senators started to look a lot like sellout. Meanwhile, Vance was memed into oblivion, stripped of his scary aura and reduced to a punchline. He found out the hard way that in the digital age, you can't bully someone who's smarter than you. The internet rejoiced in watching a bully get intellectually folded. He tried to punch down, but he forgot the first rule of physics. What hits the ground eventually bounces back harder. But this isn't just about one viral moment. Jasmine Crockett gave us a blueprint for power. Her victory is a reminder that we must never let the people in the ivory towers define our value. They use labels like street or loud or aggressive to make us feel small, to make us question our place in the room. But Jasmine proved that those words are not insults, they are evidence. Evidence that we are connected, evidence that we are passionate, and evidence that we are formidable. The era of the polite, silent victim is dead. We do not have to shrink ourselves to fit into their narrow view of respectability. We do not have to accept their definitions of who is presidential and who is street. Wear your history like armor. They can call us names, they can try to label us, but as long as we have the truth, we will always have the last word.